Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker, and today what we're talking about is my wife's 2022 Honda Rebel or CMX Rebel 500. We recently bought this bike and I rode it home from the dealership, and since then I've also put a couple of miles on it. So this is kind of my usual first ride reviews. I've actually had some time on it, and then you're going to see me actually out on the road momentarily for the rest of the portions of the video, which, if you've been with the channel a long time, you'll recognize as my usual modus operandi. But yeah, just some specs up front for everyone. I am 6'7" or 200 centimeters tall. Well, last time I was officially measured. Did my back last year and smushed a disc slightly, so I might be 6'6" now, who knows. Other important information is I am 280 freedom weights or pounds, which is about 126 kilos. So that's important because this is a tall rider for first ride review. I know straight off the bat a lot of people are going to think the Rebel 500 is too small, but what I would ask is you watch all of the video before you make your decisions. I say all of the video because the algorithm cries for the time of your eyes. Yeah, we'll go with that. That's a perfect phrase. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to jump straight into ergonomics. So I will sit up on the bike momentarily for you to actually get a look at what I look like on it. But just to run through some basic details first, which I am reading off my phone so I don't forget and get them wrong. The seat height is 691 millimeters, which is only like 27 inches. It's not a very high seat. This is a low bike, without a shadow of a doubt. And that is obviously important as a tall person because you do end up with your knees higher. I'll actually jump on the bike straight away so you can see, because it is often one of the things that people ask the most about. Now, I will say, while I'm going to look big on this bike, it is actually surprisingly comfortable just to sit on. We'll cover more of that when we're actually on the road, but there's my foot up on it. So actually sitting on it, you'll see my leg is actually quite flat. My knee is slightly higher than I would like it. If I brought the seat up on this bike so that my knee was below my hip, I think this would be perfect. More things I will cover more on the road, but the actual seating position I find very comfortable. It's very relaxed. My arms are not in any way uncomfortable sitting here. You might be able to see that. Like, this is how I would ride this. And while you are quite upright, it is actually quite a comfortable position. The seat itself, the stock seat, is quite firm. I actually prefer a firm seat, and they'll often say a firm seat is better for comfort too, because too soft can actually cut off some circulation. That's something that Honda have done a really excellent job on. This is they have made it so that you have quite a narrow seat, a narrow tank, a narrow bike. So for people who are smaller, it's still comfortable, and for people who are larger, obviously we can manage with like a wider tank and a wider seat because we've bigger legs, but also a narrow seat generally is absolutely fine too. And I don't know how exactly they have made this fit both me and my wife comfortably, but they did. But yeah, overall, like I said, I'll cover the rest on the road, but ergonomically, it's actually surprisingly more comfortable than I ever thought it would be. But yeah, definitely, if you're looking at this as a tall rider, is this comfortable enough for daily use? Absolutely. And yeah, anyway, on to me on the road. So hello and welcome back, well, to the riding portion, I suppose. And yeah, comfort and ergonomics on the road is actually quite nice. Now, you would already know my physical dimensions from the off the bike portion, but like, not to put too fine a point on it, I am a very tall person for, I suppose, what this bike is probably intended for. But that's not to take away from the fact that it's actually not bad at all. Some things that obviously could be better starting off is where my legs are. But I rode this home for my wife, whose bike this is, by the way, if you're new to the channel. I rode it home for her because she wasn't comfortable riding it home straight off the bat. And I've had, that was, 80 miles altogether. We kind of rode around the place a bit. And, I've been on it since. So there's well over 100 miles of me being on this bike now. kind of experiencing it and enjoying it. So rider triangle, it's not bad. Obviously could be better if you know, the bars were maybe a little bit higher up for me, but overall, if you're a tall person, like genuinely looking for like a bike to start off on, I would not turn you away. I would turn you away from one of these. Like if you're my size, are you going to be going touring long distance on this? No. But the seating position is actually quite comfortable. The bars, and all of this is stock, the bars are quite comfortable. I genuinely have like no major kind of complaints, I suppose. The stock seat's not great. You can get an all-in-one seat for these bikes that I think would be probably better for a taller person. You can also get, like I saw, there's a little rear rack with a kind of a backrest. That would probably be better for tall people. But I mean, overall, all the controls easy to get to. There's only one, just to kind of voice, if you want to cycle through the screens, you do have to press these buttons here, which is not ideal. I think that could have been a lot better. But I mean, actual like comfort wise, my knees are fine. There's nothing that's overly, you know, uncomfortable about any of the controls. Everything's reachable, and it's just basic stuff. So there's not really much to go through from that perspective. So yeah, seats good, mirrors good, hand controls good, easy to reach all the buttons that I might want to reach. The only thing that's not great for a taller person, generally taller people have longer feet, and the right hand engine case does kind of kick the front of your foot out a little bit, just because of, you know, how it's shaped, I suppose, if you have longer feet. So that is something definitely to be aware of, is that right hand side engine cover, if that's something you're not so good on. But ergonomics wise, like I said, rider triangle, me holding onto these bars, I am in no way upset. I could definitely do several hours on this bike in its stock form, which is honestly kind of astounding. Like, I don't know how Honda managed that. Obviously, we'll get to suspension in a little bit, but they did a great job, I think, accounting for everyone. The fact that my, you know, 5'6" wife, who's less than half my weight, can jump on this and ride it comfortably, and I can get on it in the same day and also ride it comfortably, is unusual. We'll say that it's unusual for sure. One thing I also want to add to the ergonomics and comfort and whatnot, at this speed, 50 odd to 60 odd, it's absolutely fine from a wind perspective. As you do move up in the speed, you would definitely want to add a screen and whatnot. It does get a little bit more pushy in your chest at those speeds. You do get a lot more kind of wind force, and that can be a little bit uncomfortable after a time. So that is something to watch out for, if, you know, especially if you're someone who is more susceptible to being uncomfortable in really strong wind. Just to make a note of that, I would say add a screen. Welcome back. Power and torque. This is something that obviously a lot of people always wonder about. So the max power reported, now this is, I don't know, is this at the crank? I think this might have been to the wheel, was 46.9 horsepower or 34.3 kilowatts at 8,500 RPM. And the max torque is 43 Newton meters or 31.7 pound-feet at 7,000 RPM. So it is a 6-speed transmission. It is a chain final drive. The power, right? A lot of people seem to want something that like will pull in any gear. Now this actually does pull quite well in any gears, you'll see on the road section, but it is a smaller displacement bike. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. Power and torque also. It is actually technically 471cc. Let me just double check myself here. 471cc inline twin or parallel twin, whatever you want to call it. But this is like a more traditional 180-degree crank, which doesn't have any major performance impacts, but it does sound less tasty than like a crossplane 270-degree. I think it sounds quite nice with Vance & Hines slip-on. But from the horsepowers, a lot of people get hung up on numbers on paper. The thing about it is, this is very, very, very usable for speeds that most people do, and it will accelerate as fast as most people are willing to accelerate. I know this for a fact. I've ridden with people who, like, if you don't rev your bike all the way to where it actually produces power, like if you have a bike that produces a peak of 110 horsepower to the wheel, but you're only revving it halfway there, you might only be producing a peak of 40, 50. Whereas the nice thing about slower bikes, like, or lower horsepower bikes like this one, is people tend to rev them out more. The phrase goes, it is more fun to ride a slow bike fast than a fast bike slow. Is it fast? Reasonably so. It's faster than most cars on the road. You know, you'll still do 0 to 60 in like 5.2 seconds or something, which is, you know, nothing to sniff at. It's not going to rip your ears off or anything, but it is quick. If you're looking for like a speed demon, this isn't it. If you're looking for something that's really, really fun, has 6 usable gears that you can actually rev out, this might be the bike for you. Everyone knows this engine as well. It will produce that 40 odd, 50 odd horsepower reliably forever. Either way, basically I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised. Next up, power and torque. So you would have already had the digits, but like we're talking, if you look at to the wheel numbers, it's about 40 horsepower to the wheel, but it doesn't feel slow. Like that's something that's really important to note, is that this bike has not and does not feel slow. But like here, we'll do a little pull here. So this is from second. This does have a slipper clutch. I mean, it's not a slow bike. And for how light this thing is, I think it's like 180 odd kilos wet. I'm not far off as heavy as this bike. You know, it's actually plenty of power for what it is. You know, obviously, if it was me buying one, I would go for the Rebel 1100. But as a more commutery city bike, starter bike for a taller person, or an all-the-time bike for a smaller person, this thing is fantastic. It is actual throttle cable, it's not throttled by wire, so you do get a better like feel or direct transfer from, you know, when you twist the throttle to when the power comes on, which is nice. I am a fan, obviously, of that setup. You know, none of the gears feel underpowered. The only thing I think is the 6th gear maybe could have been made like a smidge longer for cruising if you're trying to do 70 or whatever to keep up with bigger bikes. I'm in 6th, and it will still pull in 6th even as like a lower power bike, say. It's quite impressive, if I'm being honest. Like, we're at 33 miles an hour now, in 5th, and we'll just do a little pull around this corner. We'll catch up to these cars, like. So it's not going to light your world on fire from 5th, but the fact that it still pulls, to me, is impressive. And it feels nice. It feels like a good amount of power from this bike, especially if you do use your gears, you know, especially if you actually ride it like, I suppose, a smaller displacement bike where you have to use your gears up and down. Like, a lot of people now nearly want automatic bikes, like they want to have so much torque that they're not changing gear all the time, whereas in reality changing gear is actually oftentimes what makes riding a bike more fun. But the other thing that I like is you know, how the power comes on, especially obviously as this is tailored more towards beginners, but it is quite linear, and that's really, really nice, because what you don't want in a bike like this that is, you know, like I said, tailored more towards beginners or just, you know, general commuting, is you want a predictable power curve. You don't want a big lump of power, and obviously this being a, you know, 180 degree parallel twin or inline twin or whatever you want to call it, I think it's exactly what the doctor ordered, you know what I mean? These are supposed to feel like that, and I think a lot of people forget that sometimes. And the slipper clutch, you know, for instance, my wife came from a 1997 CB750 Nighthawk, which sure has more power, but she wasn't comfortable riding it as fast, you know, because it didn't have things like the slipper clutch, so it never felt as smooth and soft, or smooth and kind of in control as this one does. Honestly, like, this is such a nice little bike, for a kind of a mix of everything. Like, obviously I don't know, are we going to get any clear road today? That's just unfortunately the nature of the beast. The suspension and handling. This one is an interesting one. The weight I want to cover. So the wet weight is 185 kg or 408 pounds. for the non-ABS, and this one is an ABS, so this one is 187.7 kg or 414 pounds, which is very light. It is super light. I'll actually put a little clip overlaying me right now that I did for a short, because people were asking about the engine bars that we fitted, and you know, would the pegs hit the ground first. It was really no problem dropping that bike down to test that. Anyway, other things I just want to cover off is the front wheel travel has 4.8 inches or 121 millimeters on the front suspension. Nothing is adjustable on the front. It is standard, old school, regular, right way up forks. Very easy to rebuild, but obviously lacking that adjustability. I do think the front forks, at some point when I rebuild them, we're going to do something with that, whether it's add an emulator or whether it's changed the spring up a little bit. I don't know. I think there could be more done with those. They're fine. They work, but they're not. They could feel better. I'll put it that way. And then the rear wheel travel is 96 millimeters or 3.8 inches. So you don't really have much rear wheel travel. I mean, you can see that just looking at it. Well, you can't right now, but you'll see it in an overlaid clip. Because like it's twin shocks in the back. You do have some preload adjustment via the spinny old preload ring. But it is quite a basic setup, because this is, after all, a budget bike aimed at like beginners / commuting. And I mean, you can tell in certain cases there, but otherwise it's, I have no complaints. Into turns and stuff, it handles lovely. I have really no complaints about how it handles at all for what it is. Like, the suspension even doesn't feel like overly soft. It never bounced into corners like some other bikes did off the bat. My Z900RS, before I changed up the suspension on that did kind of bounce a little bit, wallowed a little bit. It wasn't the most pleasant. But this actually feels like pretty planted even with me on it, which again from stock was surprising. You'll see on the road test, very capable brakes, literally no issues with them at all. Braking is good. Again, it is very light, so the braking is easy. And with the ABS, you can, if you're less confident on brakes, you can hang on to them without fear of locking them up. I did give the ABS a quick test off camera. I forgot to test it on camera, and it does come on, and it's not scary or anything. It's not like an ABS that just, really is really aggressive. It's quite fine, to be honest. And to bring that on, we'll get on to suspension and handling now. So the suspension is, you have twin shocks in the back and just standard forks up front. I think personally the standard forks up front could do with a little bit more spring for everyone. They're quite divey even for lighter people. Now, the nice thing about that is suspension handling, by the way, includes our brakes. So we'll be going through the brakes. We do have a twin piston single caliper up front, there we go, and a single piston caliper on the rear. But the rear actually is way more powerful than you would think. This is the ABS version, and again, just it being geared more towards getting someone who doesn't ride that much to riding more. ABS is a good thing for sure. It's that little extra safety net. I've said it before, I don't particularly like ABS on track, but I think for general day-to-day riding, especially someone who doesn't ride as often, say as I personally ride, I think it is most certainly a good thing. The bike feels lively. Now, obviously, that is in part helped by how light it is. Like I said, off the bike, it's, I think, and from memory, it's 186 kilos or 80 kilos wet, which is exceptionally light, in my opinion. Especially considering it is a more budget-friendly bike, which generally means they don't use all the light, fancy materials. But we'll do a little brake. That's the rear brake. That's only rear, and quite a good deceleration on that. And we'll do a brake test at some point when we have no one behind us or in front of us, if we get no one behind us or in front of us. So we'll do a little brake test here now. I'm going to use both brakes. Really, really good brakes. And that was without locking them up in any way, shape or form. So we'll go again. We'll get it up to 60 miles an hour and brake. And that is again no ABS. Back down into third gear and off we go again. The brakes are really, really, really good. Really controllable. And you can also feel like where, I personally think you can feel where they probably would actually start locking. So I mean, especially again for someone who's looking at this as maybe a first bike, and you're tall and you're like, oh, I don't want to get on a big tall heavy bike, get one of these. Like everything about this to me screams something that's just enjoyable, not only to learn on but just to enjoy for really a long time. It's a great little package, both from power, from like already I could tell you from the ergonomics are quite good. Even for the length of time we've been on this video, I'm still very comfortable. Yeah, and I probably actually would be more comfortable without the air bump pad, to be honest, or just let some air out of it because it's aired up for someone much smaller and lighter than me. One thing I forgot to mention from the handling perspective is this bike obviously does have it's a bobber style, I believe you call it, so it has a kind of a fatter front wheel. And that's I think it's a 155 on the back and a 135 on the front. That does make handling really smooth actually, but turn-in is a bit different if you're used to a thinner front tire. So that is something that you do have to get used to a little bit. But I mean, it doesn't take very long, and then you do get the benefit of how smooth it is. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that as well. Practicality, I think I cover pretty well on the bike, so I won't talk too much about that, other than the fact that, you know, talking here, this bike is super easy to maintain, like super easy. There's not much to it. Everything's accessible. There's not plastic covers everywhere. It's a pretty easy to get oil filter. It takes standard 10W30 oil, well, standard motorcycle 10W30 oil. You know, even the throttle cables, very accessible. It's a standard old clutch cable, so you're not dealing with hydraulic clutch. There's nothing complicated. You know, you have a single caliper up front to deal with. You have a single caliper at the back to deal with. It's just one of those bikes that I think if you were getting this for either beginning or commuting, it's going to be very easy to keep on the road. That's the only thing I didn't mention on the bike, so we'll leave that one there. Then we'll talk quickly about practicality. This thing is phenomenal on fuel. It's really good. Like, we'll try to get to the screen. I put my phone kind of in the way. But Trip A MPG. So I reset this last time we filled up, and it's currently averaging 53.8 miles per gallon. 53.8 miles per gallon is unbelievable. Like, it really is. And the only downside to that is it is a 2.9 gallon tank. So I think a fair place to fill this up if you're being kind of safe is probably like 120, 130 miles. 120, 130 miles to a tank is not ideal. Especially if you do some more highway stuff or motorway stuff or whatever you want to call it. Higher sustained speed stuff is obviously going to bring that down. Now, I wouldn't call this engine broken in yet, so I think that MPG will probably get better. I don't actually know yet. The other thing about this bike is because it's so, I suppose, well supported, because obviously a lot of these have been sold. They are a very popular platform, whether it be the Rebel 500 or Rebel 300 or Rebel 1100. Not only just from an engine perspective, but come from kind of an everything perspective. They're a very well supported platform. So you can get lots of parts for these. And that's another thing about the practical nature of it. If you're looking for bags, there's lots of rear racks available for them, lots of engine bars, lots of screens. There's plenty of options available for this bike. The fuel economy combined with all the parts and stuff you can get for it, I think it is, you know, if you're looking for a commuter especially, I think this is a great bike. As a distance tourer, primarily, maybe not the best option. Aesthetically, I think it's a beautiful bike. The Rebel series, the new Rebel line, attracted me back when they were released. The 300, I think, is a good looking bike. The 500 is a good looking bike. The 1100 is the one that really caught my eye. I think that's gorgeous. I think they did a really good job, especially, again, this kind of blacked out, you know, section. They probably could have blacked everything out, but it might have been too expensive, like the throttle assembly and stuff. And you know, your actual intake does have some more uncoated bits, and then you do have the chrome plugs on the side of the engine. But overall, I think the blacked out look they have is really, really good, and the contrast of like the glossy frame with the matte tank is absolutely gorgeous. I have zero complaints over the looks of these bikes. The only thing that I'm not a huge fan of is actually the screen, the actual dials, for lack of a better term. I would have probably rather they went with something that was like half analog, half digital. It's nice to have the information that's on there. Otherwise, that's the only thing I would have, is that kind of reverse LED backlight. So it's, instead of being like a mainly white screen with black lettering, it's a mainly black screen with white lettering. It's easy to read. I just don't think it's the most beautiful thing that's ever been invented. And yeah, I mean, functionality wise, it's good. I have no complaints there. But I do think this is a very, very beautiful bike. But I'll let me off the bike out of here talk more, because then you can actually see the bike better.
But from, like a cockpit perspective, like when you're riding it, I'll try to get a little bit further back there to show you. I think it's a really good looking bike. It's a bike I like actually being on and riding. I think it's really cool. I think if you fit on this a lot better than I do, you probably feel cool as hell. I think my wife looks cool on the bike. Yeah, overall, I think it's just a cool place to be. It's a very cool cockpit, we'll say. I don't know how else you would describe it other than a cockpit. Maybe not a cockpit, but I think it's a cool place to be. And I really like the matte finish on the tank and the blacked out controls and whatnot. I think they're very good. The aesthetics, as you can see, this has the blacked out frame, blackened kind of headers and whatnot, and whoever did make the Vance & Hines change, I think kept it honest, because obviously you have the black tailpipe, which I would not have liked a chrome tailpipe. I think, like I said, Honda knocked it out of the park, mentioned earlier on the road, when they designed this, because I think all the black works super well with the couple of very small chrome accents here, and the bolts and whatnot. It just works really, really well. Headlights are good, bars look good, engine cases look good. The only thing I'm not a fan of, just because I know I'm going to have to maintain this, is the swing arm, the kind of roundy bar swing arm. I mean, it looks good, and I'm sure it saves some cost, but there's nowhere for like these spools for lifting with a rear stand, which is a little bit of a pity, but at the same time, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, I think aesthetics, I think it's gorgeous. To be honest, I think for what it is, it's gorgeous. Honda nailed a particular look on this one, and I'm very happy they did, because obviously the Rebel 1100 is a bike that I have aspired to for years. I'll leave a link up in the top corner of the video. Extras, there are none. You can get this is a 2022 model. You can get it with or without ABS. We opted for the with ABS. Now you also do get some functions on your screen, so you get a trip A and a trip B, and then trip A and trip B will also keep track of the MPG over that distance. You also get a current MPG readout, and then a total mileage. Now when you get into your fuel reserve, which is the final bar, it also starts to count up from what it looks like. So it seems to throw on the reserve after you've used 2 gallons, and then counts down the final 0.9 gallons until obviously you would be empty. So that is a nice to have as well. Obviously, if you're 0.9 if you get to your reserve, and if you're averaging about 50 and you've 0.9 left, you know that you really need to fill up in the next 40 miles, or you're probably going to be in a little bit of trouble. So that is pretty much the only extra. Other than that, you do obviously get a standard LED headlight. Would I call that an extra in today's day and age? Probably not. I think good lights to keep you safe should be a standard expectation at this point. And you do get a 6-speed. A lot of these kind of smaller displacement stuff historically would not have had a 6-speed and whatnot. But yeah, I wouldn't call any of that an extra. So realistically, there are no extras. And obviously, if you're in Europe, ABS, as far as I'm aware, is a legal requirement. So you would not have the option for the ABS less model, the non-ABS model. I don't think that's available in Europe. So, you know, extras, there aren't any really, but I think that's okay too. You know, if you get the ABS model, it has everything a bike needs, in my opinion. Now, one thing that I'm sure other people will point out, because it's something that my wife pointed out, is this does not have a tachometer, or, you know, if you don't know what that is, it's the thing that shows you your revs. This does not have that, which she has found difficult learning where she should change gear. For me, it doesn't really matter. I'll rev it up until I either A, hit the rev limiter, or B, it feels like it's ready to change gear. And that's just, again, that's a time learning thing. Just been on lots of different bikes over the years. This does rev to about 9,000, I think 8,500, 9,000. You can buy an aftermarket tachometer for these bikes, which is something that I have been looking at. I know there's probably going to be interest in that, so I will eventually, I think, do that. Cost-wise, what can you get these for? They range. If you're going Facebook Marketplace or if you're going to a dealer, we got this one for $4,950 was what it was listed for. So then you have all your fees and whatnot. But yeah, like I said, you can get these for a range of costs. You can go, you know, expensive. You can go brand new, which is still not too bad. You're looking at like probably 8,000, 7,000 out the door. I'm not 100% sure. Or you can go slightly used like this one and get a great out the door price as it has to go in America. We don't just do like the price. These little bumps. Or you can buy, you know, like slightly more used and get them for 3.5 to 4. The thing about the Rebel 500s is they are holding their value relatively well at the lower end. Now, that is from a glance at Facebook Marketplace. Are people actually selling them for the price they're looking for? Who knows? Maybe not. You know, there are alternatives out there. There's one alternative that I think a lot of people overlook, possibly because it's, you know, listed as a 450, so it's a little bit more honest, the CF Moto 450 CLC, whereas this is listed as the Rebel 500, but it's actually a 471. So realistically, both those bikes are a lot closer performance-wise, I would imagine, than people think. CF Moto, brand new, I think is a great offering as well. But, you know, we went for the Rebel 500 because I think they're cool. I think they look cool. And it's a Honda. So, final thoughts on the road. I think this is a fantastic bike, honestly. I think you would find it... look, the Honda 500 Twin, or 471cc Twin platform, is a beast. Yeah, like it is known for reliability. It has lots of parts availability. It's easy to service. Good on fuel, and honestly plenty of power, I think, for what it is. So, you know, if you are a smaller person looking for a beginner bike, a larger person looking for a beginner bike, an intermediate person who wants a smaller, lighter bike that's good on fuel and not too expensive and can do like commuting and also throw on some bags and do some lighter touring, especially like day tripping and whatnot, I genuinely think you would find it difficult to beat this. You know, just on account of the fact that it's a Honda, it's a proven engine platform, and honestly at this point it's a proven chassis. It's cool. It sounds good if you put an exhaust on it. It's good on fuel, and it's not uncomfortable. I'm not going to say this is a comfortable bike. I think that would be disingenuous for especially for a larger, heavier person like myself. There are definitely better platforms comfort-wise out there. You know, there's bigger cruisers and whatnot, but it comes back to really what you want. If you're looking for something light, affordable, good on fuel, easy to maintain, reliable, fun, good looking, you'd find it hard to beat this. Genuinely, I love riding this bike. It's just a cool little short spin bike that is absolutely capable of doing longer journeys as well. Like, I mean, we've been on the bikes now for 40 minutes already on the way to our destination, and I just think it's neat. Definitely a bike that I would recommend to a friend. Obviously I wouldn't have put my my toaster, my wife, on it if I did not think it was a good bike. So, you know, you kind of have proven performance. Anyway, you have proven performance, proven reliability, lots of parts availability, lots of modification availability, aesthetics, whatever. There's lots of things available for these bikes. Get to pull up the hill here. This little thing has plenty of power. So this is where we shall finish up the video. Welcome to Lake Wheeler. It's a very pretty place. North Carolina does have lots of nice state parks. It's one of my favorite things about here. I think we can probably stop here.
So that's it. If you have watched, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Apologies that I didn't do this section outdoors. It's just time. You know, I have a full-time job, so this was easier for me. You know, if you have any questions on the bike, I think I hopefully summarized everything pretty well. I think power and torque, I think it's a lovely balance for what it is. Suspension, handling, braking, again, literally no complaints. It handles great. Yeah, hopefully this video has, if you're looking at this as a bike, whether you're tall or short, hopefully this has given you some insight into what it might be like for you and whether you want to buy it or not. If you watched, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments. If you feel like I've missed anything, please let me know. I can make a short on it. I can make another short video, or I can just answer you in the comments. As always, a very special thank you to all of my patrons. I know one or two of you are interested in this bike. Hopefully this also helped you guys. And girl. Although not that Megan's interested in the bike, but yeah, anyway. Maybe yeah. Let me know. Are you interested in this bike? What the hell? I think we just lost power. It's back anyway. But yeah, like I said, if you've watched, thank you very much for watching. And yeah, questions, leave them in the comments. Otherwise, thank you very much. Adios. Outro crew. Would you buy a Rebel 500? If not, why not? And if you would, why? I think it's really cool. I really like riding it. I'm a fan. But yeah, let me know. What's your opinion, Outro crew? Bye, Outro crew.